everybody, it is Professor Parish, and we are on Module 6 for English 109. So we've got a lot to talk about in this video. I'm going to try not to make it too crazy long, but we do have a lot to talk about. So I'm recording this on Saturday, so if you've not done the peer review forum for our cause and effect paper, you do need to submit to it and respond to 2 peers by Sunday. So I checked yesterday and nobody had done this yet, and I was like, you're really banking on everybody doing it Saturday or getting it all done on Sunday. So if you don't submit your paper to the discussion forum, you won't get credit for that part of the assignment, and I won't be looking at your papers before they're due. So if you want my feedback, now's the time, because I will be checking them next week. So if you want my feedback on your paper, you do need to get it submitted to the discussion forum, and if you want credit for that part of the assignment. And then there have been people do the grammar review and textbook activity, so that's good. But we're going to talk about Module 6 this week, and there was not a reading assignment for this week, so we're going to take that time that we normally do to talk about the chapters, and I'm going to talk about the MLA citation presentation. So if you go to the Module 6 guide, there are some, obviously this video, there is a chapter to read this week. It's chapter 18. It's about compare and contrast. So you want to check that chapter out. And then revising the draft. This is basically just a little document about how to revise. And it's just a document. You can read it, but it tells you like where you should start at in terms of revising, things like that. It's pretty dry, to be honest. But once I get your papers graded for this first paper, I will go into more detail about revision. But basically, you do have a chance to revise on 3 of your papers. So the first 3 papers, you have a chance to revise. So the cause and effect paper, once I hand it back, the revisions will be due by email March 6th. The compare and contrast will be due by email April 3rd, and the narration. So each month, you'll have a chance to revise your paper, which I'm a big advocate of that. It's an English class, but we are improving and learning to improve as writers. So I wanted to make sure that we all get a chance to revise our papers and make our writing stronger. So the assignments due this week is there's a discussion forum, a grammar review number 3, and then turning in your paper. Those are the 3 assignments for this week. And then obviously reading the chapter on compare and contrast. And we'll talk about compare and contrast next week, but not this week. So with that being said, I want to go back and talk about the citation presentation before we talk about the assignments. So obviously, the only time that you really need to use MLA citation, and I'm going to click on it here, is whenever... The only time you really need to use citation is when you are using the research of someone else. If it's not information you were born with, if you got it from a source or you read it somewhere, then you need to give credit where credit is due. Because I don't know if you've ever published anything before, but I've had a few things published, and it takes a lot of time to get that done. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of effort and time and energy to do it. And so the last thing I would want as a writer is if I spent all this time crafting this article or crafting this document, and then somebody just takes my words as their own and they're like, yeah, I thought of this. I'm like, and a lot of times, I would say 90% of the time when students plagiarize or they don't cite properly, you're just not thinking about it. You're just like, oh, I just copied and pasted this from a source. That's not a good practice, because it's, again, you're just taking someone else's words as your own, and you need to give them credit. If you really like a sentence that you read somewhere, absolutely feel free to use it, but make sure you give credit to that person that originally wrote it. Don't just say it's your own writing, right? I think that's where students, a lot of it's laziness. A lot of it is like, students are like, I just didn't think about it. And I'm like, you need to. So that's probably 80% of it is you just don't think about it, but you should be, for a college setting, thinking about citing. So that's why this presentation exists. So a lot of this presentation you can skim over. I use it in English 122, which is the last English class that you'll take in college for most majors. So a lot of this is more towards their research paper. It won't really apply to us. But so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. But I talk about in this presentation, if you want to go back and read it yourself, I talk about picking credible sources, handling bias with sources. I give an example of it. Talking about website credibility, like don't use Wikipedia, don't use wikis. It's a problem because, one, like I say here, anybody can edit a wiki site. Like I could get on there right now and change a piece of information. I always use this example in English 122. My friend in college, his name was Jairus. We were on the speech team together, and we had this assignment, and our professor was talking about how not to use Wikipedia. And back then, you could just edit Wikipedia without even creating an account or anything. They've made it a little harder to edit, but it can still be edited. And so my friend Jairus, he went online and he went to Frank Sinatra, the singer. He went to his wiki page and he edited it and said that he was Frank Sinatra's spiritual advisor and that he had done Frank Sinatra's eulogy. It was the most ridiculous garbage you've ever heard of, but Wikipedia eventually corrected their page. They figured out, they're like, oh, this guy put something false on there, and corrected it. But by the time they had done that, other people had cited him, had gone to the Wikipedia page, took that information, cited him, and it's now on the internet. You can go look up Jairus Bellamy as Frank Sinatra's spiritual advisor. Like, I could do it right now. Let me see if I can actually do that. If I type in Jairus Bellamy and Frank Sinatra and eulogy. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. On familyfile.com, right? Look at this. Look at this business. If I go down here and I look up, let me see if I can look up, yeah. You see here, he's married, da-da-da-da-da. I'm looking up here. Yeah, the eulogy was given by his lifelong spiritual advisor and minister, Jairus Bellamy. That is baloney. That is false. Jairus Bellamy is a kid that's in my age that I went to college with. But see, that's the problem. And if you look on this page, did they cite anything? No. They had something at the very end that said that it compiled from a variety of sources. This is garbage. That is why citation is important, because this has false information on it that's not true. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole point. That's why you should not use Wikipedia as a source, because you don't know if it's true or not. Don't use Wikipedia. If you are somebody that gets on Wikipedia to find out basic information, then what you can do is, like, if I look up Frank Sinatra, for example. All right, let's say I go to Frank Sinatra and I want to start with Wikipedia. Let's say I start there. Then what you need to do is go to the very bottom of the page, go to the very bottom of the Wikipedia article, and from there, and this is a long article because Frank Sinatra has big history. From there, you'll see all of these sources, okay? These references. See all these references? See these, like, these articles, right? Go to those. Go to the articles that Wikipedia is citing from and cite those. Cite the references. That's what you need to do, because at least that way you'll get more credible information than just citing the Wikipedia page. But yeah, Jairus Bellamy, no, he's a guy in his 30s that lives in Northern Illinois. He is not Frank Sinatra's spiritual advisor. But that site didn't fact check, so there you go. So yeah, and the rest of this talks about, like, finding credibility, things like that, facts versus personal testimonies. But I want to go down, it's several, so there's basically with MLA, MLA stands for the Modern Language Association. It's a organization that tries to give writers credit where they're due. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because the good thing about MLA is that you can cite anything. You can reference tweets, you can reference TikToks, you can reference pictures, you can reference emails, text messages, you can reference pretty much any piece of text or media. That's the good thing. Some citation formats don't allow you to do that. The bad thing is that the more options you can cite, the more formatting you need to do. So it can get confusing. And I know a lot of students are like, there's so many rules. But honestly, there's two forms of citation. There's an in-text citation, which you do inside the paper to show exactly what you're citing. And then at the very end, there's a works cited page where you compile all your sources together in one list, right? So with in-text citations, they're not hard. Students often think in-text citations are hard. They're really not. All it is just in parentheses, you have a brief piece of information to show that it's a citation. So like here, illstu.edu is Illinois State's website. So that's where I got this little quotation from. So there's two types of in-text citation. There's print sources, which are like tangible, physical sources like a book. Or there are web sources, which I'd say most of you are going to use a web source because the internet's so accessible. If you use a print source, all you do for an in-text citation is after the information you've cited, you just put a last name and a page number, right? That's it. Or you put the title and a page number. That's it. That's all you have to do. Very easy. If it is a digital source, there are no page numbers for websites. That's the thing. Websites don't have page numbers. It's just a page. So all you have to do is either put their last name, of the author, or if there is no author, you can put just the basic website, like NY Times is the New York Times. That's it. You don't have to do a whole URL. You don't have to use www, none of that jazz, just the basic website. And that's it. They're actually really easy to do, and that way it tells me as the reader that, oh, they're citing a source here. Cool, I can go look that up later if I'm interested in it. All right? And at the very end of your paper, you have what's called a works cited page. So at the top of the page, you always put in center the title works cited. And then after that, you list your sources in alphabetical order. So I've got this thing here to know like when you use italics and when you use quotation marks. You can look at that later. I have been taking off points in the discussion forum if you mention like a show or a book and you don't italicize the title. It's just a grammar thing. But if you want to check this out later, you can. But basically, here's how you cite an MLA. You always start out with the author's last name, a comma, and then their first name. Then in quotation marks, you have the title of the work, the publisher, and the date. That's the basic format. This will alter depending on what kind of source you cite, but that's the basic format. So for example, if I cite our textbook, I'll have the author's last name, first name, the book title. Now, since it's a book and not just a story, I put it in italics, the publisher, and the year. So for example, I could have John Smith. I have Smith, comma, John. The book is called A Day to Remember in italics. The publisher is Penguin Press, and the year is 2012. And that's it. That's all I got to do. Pretty easy. If I cite a website, which I think most of you are going to do, then I do the author, last name, first name. The title of a web page is in quotation marks, so it's a little different. Because then what you put in italics is the actual website, then the publisher, the date, and a link to the website. So for example, this is, I think, what confuses a lot of students is you have your author's last name, first name, easy enough. The title of the article is Immigration Reform on the Forefront. So I have it in quotation marks. This is the part that confuses a lot of students because MLA wants you to list the website. So nytimes.com or nytimes is my website, but it also wants me to put down the publisher. Most websites, because of branding and marketing, they want their website and their web publisher to be the same. So students get confused sometimes because they're like, aren't I putting down the same thing twice? You kind of are. So I have NY Times in italics, and then my publisher is the New York Times Online. So it's a little different, the wording is, but it's essentially the same thing. But you do need to put them both down. So just keep that in mind. The website is going to be what's in italics here. The publisher is going to be what's not right after it. So sometimes they're going to look the same. Like nationalgeographic.com, you'd have National Geographic in italics, and the publisher is National Geographic. So they're going to be the same, but you do need to have both. And then you have the date published. We write it in military time, so you do day, month, year, and then you have the full URL at the end. So if I wanted to go to this article and read it, I would be able to copy and paste this full link, and then I'd be able to go read it if I wanted to. And sometimes I do. Sometimes students have pretty cool topics and sources, and I do go back and read them. So it is important to have that. But that's how you cite a web page. And then obviously I've got some thing about the days and the times here. Save the full length, blah, blah, blah. And then journal titles aren't here. Don't worry about journal titles yet. If you do cite a journal, there's a little bit more that you have to put, like volumes and issues and page numbers. But don't worry about that right now. I'm assuming most of you are just going to cite books or web pages. So just worry about this web page. Just go to slide 20 and look at the web page one, and that's how you'll organize your citation. Okay? And then obviously Purdue University in Indiana, their English program is amazing, and they kind of head up the MLA website and alter it and edit it. So if you have other questions, you can always email me, but you can also go to Purdue's website, and I've got a link to it right here, and it'll show you like how to cite emails, tweets, things like that. So that is MLA in a nutshell. I'm probably going to come back to this presentation as we go on. If I see that everybody's having a certain trend, like if everybody's struggling to cite web pages, I'll probably come back and do a refresher on it. But that's just the basics. So obviously slides like 18 through 20 and the ones on in-text citations, make sure to read those. And then if you have questions, let me know. But with your first paper, I am going to be looking 4 citations. And I will take off points if you just give me a paper with no citations, because I doubt you can write a cause and effect paper for this class without citing something, right? So we'll see. But that's the MLA citation presentation. If you need to see it, it is right here on our first module right here, okay? So going back down to module 6, the assignments for this week, you obviously have your paper. It's due. It's worth 50 points. So this first paper is pretty important. Here's the thing. I talked about revision earlier at the start of this video. If you turn in a paper, you will get to revise it. So turn something in. If you don't turn a paper in, I will not let you turn it in late because I don't accept papers late. And you won't get a chance to revise it because it's like you have to turn something in to get a chance to revise. So even if you're not finished, with your paper and you're like, it's not perfect, I don't like it, go ahead and turn it in. Let me grade it and give you a grade. And then if you're not happy with that grade, you can revise it for a higher grade. So if you turn nothing in, it's just a 0. This is kind of like an all or nothing scenario. You either turn in something by Sunday night and you will get a chance to revise it, or you won't turn anything in and you won't get a chance to revise and you'll just be a 0. So make sure by next Sunday, the 20th, that you have something turned in. Even if it's what you did for your draft, turn it in. And then you'll at least get a chance to get a higher grade on it. All right? I can't emphasize that enough. I always have students that forget to turn something in. They're like, oh, well. I'm like, nope. You've known for weeks about this paper being due, so make sure you don't forget about it. And then the other 2 assignments, you have the discussion forum for this week. As we're talking about writing papers, I do like this video. It's talking about the power of a great introduction. Like if your favorite book, if you think about your favorite book or your favorite show, if you think about your favorite TV show, think of that first episode, that pilot episode that gets you hooked. That's kind of like the introduction of the series, right? So this video goes over the power of a good introduction and how it can be hard to craft a good introduction, but if you do it right, it's very effective. So this video is only 5 minutes long. It's pretty short. But after watching the video, the questions here are, according to the video, what are the 4 parts of a literary analysis? They will tell you in the video. The video expects you to write the introduction at what point in the story? Why is that? And then finally, what can we learn about from this video about literary analyses and how we can apply it to our writing of cause and effect? So what from the video could you apply to your final draft of the cause and effect paper before you turn it in? Is essentially what I'm asking, right? So that's pretty much it for this paper, for this discussion forum. So definitely check that out there. All right. And then the last assignment is grammar review number 3. And I have updated it, so it should be good. Let me double check here. So yeah, this is actually a pretty short assignment because you do have your paper due this week. So on page 446 in your textbook, for numbers 1 through 10, you are just writing out the incorrect verb in the sentence and then write the correct verb beside it. So each sentence has an incorrect verb, and I want you to write it out, and then I want you to tell me what the correct form of it should be. All right? That's activity 1. And then the only other thing is activity 2. And for that assignment, on page 447, you've got 3 sentences and you have a verb. So like number 1, you have freeze. And in each sentence, you're going to use freeze in a different form. And I want to know what is the correct form of the verb to be used in each of those sentences for the word that they give. And I showed you the word that they give right here. Number 9 is give. So I just want to know in A, B, and C what the correct forms are. So this grammar review activity should actually not take you very long to do at all. But I wanted to give you that and then have the rest of the week be dedicated to doing the paper and the discussion forum. All right. And if you need to use MLA, take time this week to work on your citations. Okay. As always, if you have questions, please email me. I'm going to be at high schools. Excuse me. I'm going to be at high schools throughout the week testing in the mornings, but my goal is to be back at the college on campus from 2:30 to 4:30. So if you email me throughout the week, it'll probably be after school or in the afternoons when I get back to your emails, probably between 2:30 and 4:30, but I will be in my office all week to answer them in the afternoon. So if you have questions, please ask me during the week. Next weekend, I am going to be busy. So over the weekend, I probably will not be on my computer very much. So make sure that if you have a question for me that you can ask me and I can get a hold of you before your paper is due. All right. So I hope this helped give a nice introduction to MLA. If you have questions, please let me know. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll see you all soon next week to talk about Module 7 of English 109.